Hi, I'm Renee from Read, Write, Think with Renee, and I have my good friend Antonio Sacre with me, author, performer, and storyteller extraordinaire. And this is part two of how we hope to support you bring a little storytelling into your everyday life, whether that's your everyday life curriculum at home or a hybrid of homeschool learning or brick and mortar learning. We really truly believe that we all can benefit from storytelling in our curriculum. And if you're just beginning to think about starting your school year in the middle of a pandemic, the great thing about storytelling is you do not need any tech gadgets. You basically need what we're on now, a storytelling, some sort of platform to connect with your students, whether that's Google Meet or Schoology or Zoom. And you need no dot camera, you need no pen or paper. You really just need to be present so your students and you can join together and think through building community. So in part two of our time with you, we want to encourage you with a little bit of a few tips on how to rehearse, develop, and perform, kind of dramatize stories with your students, because also this is where kids could have a lot of fun, and we hope you do too. Kind of getting up on your feet and kind of getting the stories embodied, through your actions and through your gestures and through your tone, and giving yourselves permission to practice and be resilient, start and stop again, and thinking through how the more we perform our story and rehearse it, those will actually are details. Like that's the form of elaboration in our writing. And so when we do go to take pen to paper and we're thinking about how to add how somebody was thinking, and we've been kind of performing it like, we've added gestures to it. That gesture is actually going to translate to really detailed language to get it on the page in ways that a story can come to life for both the writer and the reader of that story. Tell a little bit more of your story or another story in this section, just to
Yes,
have a mentor, and then we can kind of talk about performance of it. Okay.
sure. So our one trip this summer to Sequoia National Forest, we were in the campsite, and I told you a little bit about the campsite, but the whole point was to get into the forest and to see these majestic, amazing trees. You can see pictures of them on the internet, doesn't do it justice, but it's still incredible. And we get into the forest, and there is a huge monolith slab of rock, and it's called Morrow Rock. And my wife and my son and I want to get to the top of it, and Nina, who's 8 years old, was a little bit reticent to do it. We get to the thing, and it's just a few steps in the front, and we start going up. Well, it quickly becomes the steepest, scariest. Well, when we step to the beginning of the thing, it says, people have died on this trail. And so I read that like, oh, we need to be careful. And Nina just went, I don't want to die. And it's like, but it's Morro Rock. We've never been here. We may never be here again. Let's just go one step at a time. But people have died. Yes, but you're not going to die. But it says it on the sign that people die. And I want to kill the person who wrote the sign. But I want to know that, okay, yeah, that's right. So anyway, we grab her hands and we're going up, and she's sobbing and sobbing, and it's a disaster. And part of it is early what I said, like, I want to provide this amazing experience, not a disco at 11 in the night or this you're going to die thing. We finally get to the top, and the view is what I expected. And Nina says, I'm not going back down. I'm like, you gotta go. I don't want to die. That's the whole thing again. And I'm saying things I don't want to say as a parent. And finally, I came upon this thing, just a genius moment as a parent. We all have them, as well as all those miserable moments as a parent. I said, Nina, grab my hand. What's stronger, these cement steps and this iron railing, or your dad's muscles? She said, the steps and the railing, Dad. Ah, oh, Nina. We took a few steps down. And for the next 100 steps, I repeated variations of that phrase. We got down to the bottom of the mountain, and Nina said, Dad, that was cool, but I never have to do that again.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, Nina. Okay, yes, I'm right there with you again. So I'm imagining you're listening to, I wish we could all see your faces as you were watching this, but
Sure.
incredibly way to bring us into that moment, for so many reasons. So Antonio, I'm gonna share my screen, but this is what I have learned from you. And thank you for being our mentor and just sharing that story with us. So what I have learned from having Antonio as one of my thinking partners for the last decade or so is how to bring an experience to our literacy practices. So Antonio is showing us here how to create an experience around a story that we are telling. And I'm also going to just mention that the mirror to this would be to create an experience around the story that we are reading. So reading aloud and how they are so closely related. But Antonio, you in that moment, right, of climbing the rock is we could hear you changing your voice to match the character. So it was like you had the narrator voice, but you also had you speaking as the dad, right? And then Nina speaking as the daughter. And so changing your voice just slightly, I could picture, right, the exchange happening between the characters. Antonio, like there's an art to varying your pace, like parts where you pick up the pace and it's very rapid, and then there's parts when you slow down. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit of your why, because I know that's very intentional, and this idea of adding a gesture while you're telling, or even we're sitting right now, but could you imagine students at home, like kids at home or students on their screen, just being up on their feet and acting out the story helps us find words for it and kind of dramatizes it a little bit. So if you could just talk a little bit about your intention, and thank you for teaching these strategies to me and also showing them in your story today.
And I also want to thank you for showing me how to use these techniques that I do naturally as a performer for my read alouds, even with my own children, because I didn't do that with my read alouds. So that's just a great example. So for the voices, some of my friends are phenomenal mimics and they can sound like anybody. And I'm not really that person. So I just kind of really the way I change my voice is slightly higher for younger or smaller characters, and then my normal speaking voice and slightly lower for the other characters. So those are the three voices I use in all of my stories. The pace, you'll notice in the story, when we get to the top and we look out, if you were reading it, I would need to write better words to show you what the view is. But a trick or a tool of a storyteller is just that gesture of looking out, and that pause really makes that story land. So in every story, I think that there's a moment that you can have this where you're seeing it in your mind and they're seeing it in their mind, and this is activating their brain. And there's other studies that say this is what helps them write too. So that's the thing. Now, the gesture, I want to speak about the gesture for a second, because in a Zoom, you have this much space. So if you noticed, I really was conscious of pulling my arm in to the frame. Now, really, it was this, but this is, you can't see it. So I don't want to get too technical, but I want you to be aware that this is the gestures that are happening. And then Nina was scared, so it's a little bit of it. I'm not going to have your kids worry about framing as they're telling stories, but I'm adjusting a little bit. Now, in a classroom, I would get to do, I get to do all of it, and you get to see all of it. So those are, but for sure, just a gesture or two. You can not to make it. I don't want you to think too much about. Just tell the story, But the more that you do it, this little thing, what's stronger, this or the rail, and then the pause, the railing, Dad. So this is gesture. I'm gesturing. Nina's looking like that, and this is helping the story come to life.
100%. And I'm also imagining for storytellers of all ages, it takes you back to that moment, and it's you get over that roadblock of summary, right? Okay, we climbed a rock. Okay. You know what I mean? And so I think by gesturing, or I was at the soccer field. Okay. So run down the soccer field. Oh, were your arms going like that? You scored a goal. What did your face look like? And so I do think that it helps. Sometimes if this is newer to us, and you can see the parallel in writing too, is sometimes we end up telling like list stories or summary stories. Right? I got up, I went to the park, I played a game of soccer. It was fun. I just list out the events, and there's no real story there. And by really kind of coaching kids with some of those sentence starters we offered in session 1, and this gesture, and like really dramatizing it, they're acting it out moment by moment. It helps us slow down the moment and find the moment, and find the story in it. And just imagine doing that over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how old the storyteller is. I don't think you ever get tired of it, because it's your story, right? We're saying you matter. And so you find the story from your life, And so we get to tell it over and over and over again. And maybe that story is different from Nina's perspective. That would be fun too, from Antonio's. But that's the beauty of story too. You get to angle the story so that the reader of your story learns a little bit about you and the moment. Fantastic. So, Antonio, thank you so much for being with us. And Antonio and I want to wish you well and the best of luck. Remember, you matter, your story matters. So find your story and tell it and practice telling it. Hopefully these strategies help you, and give students the children in your lives that you work with, I guarantee this will be an engaging way to start the year with them or to create community with them. And it's a tech-free strategy. So we really want to encourage you as you think about the curriculum that you're building in the next couple of days and weeks. We strongly believe that starting the year with a unit of a study on storytelling is a great way to go. Thanks so much.